You think you grew up. You think you left that house, that room, that version of yourself behind. You think the years did their job, that time healed, that distance worked. You think you became someone else, stronger, smarter, more aware. You think you're in control now, that the past is just a story you tell when someone asks, a chapter closed, a wound healed, a life moved on. But you didn't grow up, not entirely, not where it matters most. The child you were, the one who sat alone in that room, the one who learned to smile when they wanted to scream, the one who made themselves smaller just to survive. That child is still inside you, not as a memory, not as a fading image in the back of your mind, but as a force, a presence, a silent architect of everything you do, everything you feel, everything you can't seem to change no matter how hard you try. You don't see them, but they see everything. Every reaction you can't explain, it's them. Every pattern you can't break, it's them. Every fear that rises in your chest for no reason you can name, it's them. The child who never got to speak is speaking through you now. The child who learned that love meant silence is choosing your words. The child who discovered that survival meant invisibility is deciding when you show up and when you disappear. The child who built walls so high you forgot they were there is still standing guard, protecting you from dangers that no longer exist. You think you're free. You think you're making your own choices, but you're not. You're still obeying orders you don't remember receiving. You're still following rules written in a language you've forgotten. You're still running from ghosts you can't see and chasing shadows you mistake for light. Your childhood never left you. It didn't fade with time. It didn't dissolve with distance. It didn't vanish when you moved out, grew older, or told yourself you were fine. It's here, right now, in this moment, in the way you love, in the way you sabotage, in the way you reach for connection and pull away the second it gets too close, in the way you work yourself to exhaustion because rest feels like weakness, in the way you apologize for things that aren't your fault, in the way you stay silent when you should speak, in the way you speak when you should stay silent, and until you see it, until you turn around and look that child in the eyes, it will control everything. This is not a metaphor. This is not poetry. This is the architecture of your inner life. And it's time you stopped pretending it isn't there. There's a version of you that never grew up. The child you were didn't disappear when you turned 18 or 25 or 30. They didn't vanish when you got your first job, your first relationship, your first taste of independence. They went underground. They became invisible, but they never left. And now, years later, they run the show. You don't notice it, not consciously. You don't wake up and think, today I'm going to let my 8-year-old self make all my decisions. But that's exactly what's happening every time you freeze in a moment that requires courage. Every time you lash out at someone who didn't deserve it. Every time you feel a wave of shame for reasons you can't articulate. Every time you sabotage something good when part of you remains convinced you don't deserve it. That's not you. That's them. The child who learned that speaking up meant punishment. The child who discovered that needing something meant being a burden. The child who figured out that the only way to survive was to become what others needed them to be. That child remains alive inside you, still afraid, still guarding, still trying to protect you from a world that no longer exists. And the strangest part? You've built your entire life around them. Your relationships, they're shaped by what that child learned about love. If love meant chaos, you'll seek chaos. If love meant distance, you'll keep your distance. If love meant earning it through performance, you'll exhaust yourself trying to be enough. You won't know why. You'll just feel it. A pull, a pattern, a script you didn't write but can't stop reading from. Your work, it's driven by what that child believed about worth. If worth meant productivity, you'll never rest. If worth meant invisibility, you'll shrink. If worth meant proving yourself over and over again, you'll burn out chasing validation that never comes. You'll call it ambition. You'll call it discipline. But deep down, it's fear. The fear that if you stop, you'll be forgotten, abandoned, erased. Your inner world, it's ruled by what that child decided was safe. If safety meant silence, you'll swallow your truth. If safety meant control, you'll try to control everything and everyone around you. If safety meant disconnection, you'll keep people at arm's length and wonder why you feel so alone. You think you're living your life, but you're living their life, the life they had to create to survive. The strategies they had to develop when the adults around them couldn't be trusted. The armor they had to wear when being soft meant being hurt. And the cruelest part, those strategies worked. They kept you alive. They got you through. They turned a child who had no power into an adult who could function, who could perform, who could appear fine even when everything inside was breaking. What saved you then suffocates you now. The walls that protected you have become your prison. The silence that kept you safe has become your isolation. The independence that made you strong has become the reason you can't let anyone in. The hypervigilance that helped you survive has become the anxiety that won't let you rest. You're not weak for feeling this. You're not broken for carrying this. You're human. And the child inside you, the one you've been ignoring, the one you've been running from, the one you've been trying to outgrow, they're not your enemy. They're the part of you that never got to be held, never got to be seen, never got to be told you're safe now, you can stop fighting. And until you turn toward them, until you stop running and start listening, they will continue to run your life from the shadows. They act from fear. They're still waiting for the danger to return. And they don't know that you're strong enough now to protect them. This is the pattern. This is the loop. This is why you repeat the same mistakes, attract the same people, feel the same emptiness no matter how much you achieve. You're not living from who you are now. You're living from who you had to become then. And the tragedy, you don't even know it's happening. Let's go deeper. Let's talk about what actually happens when a child learns that the world isn't safe, when they learn that love is conditional, when they learn that their needs are too much, their emotions are too loud, their presence is too heavy, when they learn that to survive, they must adapt, shrink, perform, disappear. The child doesn't have the language for it. They don't sit down and think, I'm developing a coping mechanism. They just do what works. They observe, they absorb, they adjust. And in that adjustment, something fundamental shifts. They stop being themselves. They start being what's required. And that shift, that moment of adaptation, becomes the blueprint for everything that follows. There are parts of you that you had to disown in order to be loved, accepted, or safe. The anger you weren't allowed to feel, the sadness you were told to get over, the needs you learned to suppress, the desires you were taught to be ashamed of, all of it buried, denied, pushed into the darkness. But it didn't disappear. It became a force, unconscious, uncontrolled, operating beneath the surface of your awareness, influencing every choice, every reaction, every relationship. You don't see it, but it sees you. It shows up in the way you flinch when someone raises their voice, even when they're not angry, in the way you panic when someone doesn't text back, even when you know they're busy, in the way you overwork yourself to exhaustion, even when no one's asking you to, in the way you push people away the moment they get too close, even when you desperately want connection. These aren't random behaviors. They're not personality flaws. They're survival patterns. adaptive responses that made perfect sense when you were small, powerless, and dependent on people who couldn't give you what you needed. The problem? You're not small anymore. You're not powerless anymore. You're not dependent anymore. But the child inside you doesn't know that. They're still operating from the same rulebook, the same map of reality, the same understanding of how the world works, and that map is outdated, dangerous, wrong. It tells you that vulnerability equals weakness, that asking for help means burdening others, that being yourself means being rejected, that rest equals laziness, that anger equals danger, that sadness equals weakness, that needing someone means losing yourself, and so you live accordingly. You avoid conflict, even when it costs you respect. You say yes when you mean no, even when it drains you. You stay in relationships that hurt you, convinced that leaving would prove you're unlovable. You work yourself into the ground, terrified that slowing down would reveal you're worthless. You build walls around your heart and call it independence. You numb your pain and call it strength. You think you're protecting yourself, but you're suffocating yourself. Sigmund Freud understood this. He called it repetition compulsion, the unconscious need to recreate the conditions of your original wound. You don't do it intentionally. You do it automatically. You seek out the familiar, even when the familiar is painful. You choose partners who replicate the emotional unavailability of your parents. You enter dynamics that mirror the chaos of your childhood. You put yourself in situations where you have to prove your worth, over and over again, just like you did back then, and you wonder why nothing changes. You wonder why you keep ending up in the same place, with the same feelings, with the same people wearing different faces. It's not bad luck, it's not coincidence, it's the child inside you, trying to resolve what was never resolved, trying to heal what was never healed, trying to get from strangers what they never got from the people who were supposed to give it to them. But it doesn't work. It never works. You can't heal the past by repeating it. You can't earn the love you deserved as a child by exhausting yourself as an adult. You can't prove your worth to people who will never see it. You can't make someone stay by making yourself smaller. You can't control the uncontrollable by becoming perfect. And yet, you try. You keep trying. The child in you keeps trying. They're still in that room, still waiting, still hoping that if they just do it right this time, if they're just good enough, quiet enough, helpful enough, successful enough, they'll finally be safe, finally be loved, finally be enough. But that day never comes. Jean-Paul Sartre said, "We are our choices." But what if your choices aren't really yours? What if you're choosing from a menu written by a child who didn't know any better? What if the freedom you think you have is just the illusion of freedom, and beneath it all you're still dancing to a rhythm you learned before you could even speak? You think you're in control, but control is the illusion. The child is in control, and they're terrified. They're terrified of being abandoned, so you cling, or you run before anyone can leave you first. They're terrified of being hurt, so you never let anyone close enough to wound you. They're terrified of being a burden, so you carry everything alone even when you're collapsing under the weight. They're terrified of being seen, so you hide behind roles, behind masks, behind the version of yourself that's acceptable, digestible, safe. And in hiding them, you hide yourself, you lose access to your anger so you can't set boundaries. You lose access to your sadness, so you can't grieve. You lose access to your desire, so you can't pursue what you actually want. You lose access to your voice, so you can't speak your truth. You become a ghost in your own life, present but not really there, alive but not really living, functional but not really free. And the worst part? You don't even realize it's happening. You think this is just who you are. You think this is your personality, your nature, your normal. but it's not. It's a construction, a defense, a strategy built by a child who had no other options. And that child is still building, still defending, still strategizing, every day, every moment, every breath, until you stop them, until you turn around and say, I see you, I know what you've been doing, and I'm here now. You don't have to do this anymore. This is where the real work begins, not in fixing yourself, not in becoming better, not in erasing the past, but in meeting the child you left behind and learning to become the adult they needed all along. If you're still here, it means something in this resonates. You recognize yourself in these patterns, in this invisible force that's been shaping your life without your permission. This channel exists for that recognition, for people who think deeply, feel deeply, and refuse to settle for surface-level answers. If that's you, subscribe, not for comfort, for clarity. Now let's talk about what comes next. The question you're probably asking now is, how do I stop this? How do I break free from the child who controls me? How do I silence the voice that tells me I'm not enough? How do I kill the fear? How do I erase the past? And the answer is this: you don't. You can't kill what kept you alive. You can't erase what made you who you are. You can't silence the part of you that's been screaming for your attention for years, maybe decades. What you can do is something far harder. You can turn around and face them. You can stop running, stop pretending, stop numbing, stop performing. You can look at the child inside you, the one you've been ignoring, the one you've been ashamed of, the one you've been trying to outgrow. And you can say, I see you, not with pity, not with disgust, not with the need to fix or change or improve, but with presence, with recognition, with the understanding that this child, this terrified, wounded, brilliant child, did everything they could to survive. They built walls when they needed protection. They went silent when speaking felt dangerous. They disappeared when being seen felt like a threat. They became what others needed them to be when being themselves felt impossible. They saved you, and now you have to save them. Not by abandoning them, not by telling them to grow up, not by shaming them for still being afraid, but by becoming the adult they never had. The adult who doesn't punish them for feeling. The adult who doesn't abandon them when they're scared. The adult who doesn't demand perfection in exchange for love. The adult who says, you don't have to perform anymore. You don't have to prove anything. You're safe now. I've got you. This is what integration means. Not erasing the past. Not pretending it didn't happen. Not getting over it like the world keeps telling you to, but creating a new relationship with it. A relationship where the past doesn't dictate the present. Where the child inside you isn't running the show out of terror. Where you, the adult you are now, can make choices from awareness, from strength, from presence, instead of from fear. Michel Foucault spoke of this when he wrote about the care of the self. He understood that freedom doesn't come from escaping yourself. It comes from knowing yourself, from examining the structures that govern you, from seeing the invisible forces that shape your behavior, and then consciously, deliberately choosing differently. You've been living on autopilot, following a script written by a child who didn't know any better, reacting instead of responding, repeating instead of evolving. But you can rewrite it, not by force, not by willpower, not by beating yourself into submission, but by observation, by awareness, by dialogue. When you feel the panic rise in your chest for no reason, stop, breathe. Ask yourself, who is this? Is this me now? Or is this the child who learned that the world isn't safe? When you feel the urge to people please, to say yes when you mean no, to shrink yourself to make others comfortable, Stop. Breathe. Ask, who is this? Is this me now? Or is this the child who learned that their needs didn't matter? When you sabotage something good, when you push away someone who loves you, when you burn yourself out chasing validation that never comes, stop. Breathe. Ask, who is this? Is this me now? Or is this the child who learned that they had to earn love? And when you identify them, when you see them clearly, don't fight them. Speak to them. Tell them, I know you're scared. I know you're trying to protect me. But I'm not in danger anymore. I'm not powerless anymore. I can handle this now. You can rest. This is the work, not transcendence, not enlightenment, not some mystical awakening where the past dissolves into light, but something quieter, something harder, something more real. The work of becoming whole, of reclaiming the parts of yourself you had to abandon, of integrating the emotions you had to suppress, of giving voice to the child who never got to speak. Friedrich Nietzsche said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." But what if your why was never really yours? What if you've been living for the approval of people who are no longer even in your life? What if you've been chasing goals that don't mean anything to you, just to prove something to a version of yourself that's stuck in the past? The child inside you doesn't need you to achieve more. They don't need you to be perfect. They don't need you to prove your worth. They need you to stop, to slow down, to breathe, to turn around and acknowledge that they exist, that they matter, that they were never the problem. The problem was a world that couldn't hold them. Adults who couldn't see them. Systems that demanded they become smaller, quieter, easier. And you internalized that demand. You made it your identity. You became the person who doesn't need anything, who doesn't feel too much, who doesn't take up space. But you can unmake it. You can unlearn what you were taught. You can challenge the beliefs you didn't choose. You can question the rules you've been following without knowing why. You can ask yourself, what would I do if I weren't afraid? What would I say if I didn't need approval? Who would I be if I didn't have to perform? And then slowly, carefully, courageously, you can start living from that place, not perfectly, not overnight, not without fear, but consciously, with intention, with the understanding that you are no longer that child, you are no longer helpless, you are no longer at the mercy of forces you can't control. You are the observer now, the one who sees the patterns, the one who understands the mechanisms, the one who can choose differently. And that choice, that single moment of awareness, is where everything changes. Not in the world around you, but in the world inside you. The child you've been carrying doesn't need to be fixed. They need to be seen, they need to be heard. They need to be told for the first time in their life that they were never too much. They were always enough. And so are you. This is not the end. This is the beginning. The moment you stop running from yourself and start walking toward the truth. Your childhood never left you. It lives in the way you love, in the way you hurt, in the way you hide, in the way you reach for things you don't really want and run from things you need. It lives in your silence, in your anger, in your exhaustion, in the walls you built so high you forgot they were there. The child inside you isn't your past, they're your present. And until you turn around, until you stop pretending they don't exist, they will continue to write your story, not out of malice, out of fear. They're still waiting for the danger to return, and they don't know that you're strong enough now to face it. So face it. Not tomorrow, not when you're ready, not when it feels safe, now, because the only way out is through, and the only way through is to stop running. The child you left behind is still waiting. Go find them.